Hey there, folks. Before we begin, I would really appreciate it if you'd be willing to go search up the BIPOC Streamer Awards and cast your vote for the Chatterbox Award for the Winging It podcast, because we're up for it for this year, and we'd really like to potentially win that. So if you could do us a favor, head over there and make that vote for us, that would be highly appreciated. On with the discussion. Hey there, folks. This is Andre, the Game Idea Guy, and I just want to ask a question. And it's something that's been on my mind. I even made a post on X about it maybe a week or two ago. But who would be interested in seeing what all of these quote-unquote game consoles that are coming out would be able to do if they had games actually written for said devices, meaning that the coding was made specifically to run on that hardware and they weren't just basically little emulation devices? Because that's something that stands out to me. There are so many game consoles coming out that don't actually have games. And somebody's going to say, oh no, that's being an oxymoron, Andre. There are games that you can play on these things, but they're not games that belong to the people making the hardware. For the majority, a lot of those are pirated games. Pirated games that are being sold off along with these handheld units or standalone boxes that get plugged into your TV. So then it comes down to, well, what could they do with the hardware? Like, yeah, I'm certain that someone somewhere would be able to program something to work with these different machines. And it's also like a very empty market when you think about it. If someone was to be able to make and code games for these individual devices and sell them, they could make money. Because you have a wide open market that no one has actually tapped into. Just that there are people who are getting this and getting these things and just using them as emulators, emulator boxes. Which again, I mean, personally, I don't have a specified problem with the notion of having a machine that's dedicated to emulation. But it also feels wasteful to have a machine that is solely dedicated to emulation. And again, these aren't games that belong to these little platforms. They're games that belong to tons of other companies that are being thrown on emulators, usually RetroArch, and then being played on those little machines. So it just sits with me kind of odd that it's basically hardware that has no software to itself. And again, somebody's going to be thinking, well, but you're playing emulated games on it, then there's software. No, there isn't software for it. It doesn't have its own dedicated software. Like even if you go beyond like the little cheap stuff, you go up to the higher end stuff, the Aya Neos and Steam Decks and 1X players and stuff like that. Those are either portable PCs or emulator machines. They don't have their own dedicated games. That's the thing that I sit and stare at in confusion, like, Everybody's willing to drop all this money on these machines from the hardware perspective. But you mean to tell me nobody's interested in these machines actually having their own software and what you could actually do with them if they had their own software? That's the thing that confuses me. Because when I see gaming hardware, I want to see what the hardware can do. Hey, being able to run emulators, yeah, that's nice and all, but what can you do yourself? Well, but you see, when I'm playing on this machine, I don't have to play it at a 240p resolution. I can now play it at 720p, and that is so much more preferable. Okay, but you're still playing the same game. You're still playing something that belongs to something else. It's not your dedicated stuff. Like the Flip DS, which honestly it probably shouldn't have been called that because the naming is too close to Nintendo DS. But this machine, $700+ so that you can play Wii U and 3DS and DS games with dual screens. When the machines that they originally belonged to did that already. And even more insulting is, this is a sidetrack, but even more insulting was that the game that was used to promote this device was Star Fox Zero. So many people talked about how much they disliked that game, but I saw that video and I saw people talking about wanting to play the game this way. So it starts to make me wonder, did people have a hand-eye coordination issue when it came down to Wii U? Like, could you not envision your television screen just being the top screen of a DS and the gamepad screen being the bottom screen for 3DS or DS? Did you need to have both screens attached to each other to actually understand how to play this game? Side tangent over. I would really like to see these different dedicated, well, not dedicated, but these different machines that are basically used as emulation stations. What can you do with software dedicated to you? Now, I doubt I'm the only person that has had that thought, that wondering that. I'm pretty sure there's probably a couple guys out there writing code right now trying to figure out what they could do with these machines and how they could make original games for this hardware that's just floating about to consume and emulate other software. It's just, it sits odd with me. Like, if I want to get hardware, I want to have software that shows me what the hardware is capable of. And emulation doesn't do that. Emulation doesn't do that specifically because emulation in and of itself has limitations. So I sit here curious about how all this stuff would work and how it would look if someone took their time and made their own games for these machines. Or even if they don't do that, if they actually work on porting directly to the machines. Now, with stuff like Doom, that is more than likely to happen. Doom is the thing that is ported to the most everything. Doom is on calculators. Doom is on banking machines, ATMs, and everything. So Doom has traveled places. Doom, I expect to see on these things. But that means that there is a wide open market for a lot of stuff that could be done. And again, someone making original games that would work and run directly on the hardware, directly on the metal of these platforms. How good would those games be? That's the thing that I keep questioning. I don't think, like, and I'm not of the camp, oh, well, this hardware is crappy because it can't do. No. Gaming hardware has different uses and purposes. Depends on the intention that the device was created for. But even still, a device that's created to be used to do emulation could still have its own original software. And being is that I'm a person that wants to see the industry be able to actually expand, I would actually like to see some companies come out with original hardware and then original games to go with said hardware. That would be far more fun and fulfilling, because then you're adding variety to the industry, not just siphoning off of what already exists. A great example is the Playdate. Playdate is its own separate device. It has its own way to work. And it has games that are built around it as a device. And that's awesome. I would even say with the Atari VCS has its own games. Stuff that is separate from what is out on the market in general, unless someone ports those games. Even with stuff like the Ouya, which was a horribly treated machine, it had its own software. Even though it worked through utilizing Android as part of its home, the OS, it still had its own software, which a lot of it got ported elsewhere once the console basically crashed out. But still, it had its own identity. I think that's really my thing, is like none of this hardware coming out has its own identity. Most of it, it's just a borrowed thing. I'm like, oh, well, I can play a bunch of games in my pocket if I really want to. I mean, you can pretty much do that with just about any machine at this point. I mean, at least as far as portable is concerned. But what you can't do is play original games for hardware that doesn't have original games that exist. We need more unique ideas. We need more pushing for variety and choice. And variety and choice is created by making new stuff, not just by snatching up the old stuff and selling it off. And again, if even one of these companies that's pushing to sell hardware that gets used for emulation, if even one of them decides, hey, let's actually get some people together and make a development studio and start making our own games for this device that we sell, or this family of devices that we sell, they could make a lot of money. They could stand to make a lot of money. Especially the more popular ones. Again, I and Neo They are popular in the scene for hardware that's used for emulation. By now, I would think that they have accumulated enough money to be able to develop a game. I could be wrong, but I would think that they have made enough money to be able to develop a game. They wouldn't be able to stay in business if they weren't sustainable in some way. And honestly, it only takes one of them to be bold enough to start putting out stuff like this and running with their own ideas. But let me not beat this horse into submission anymore. I think we're done here. But if anybody has anything that they'd like to add or comment, please do. I would be interested in other people's perspectives on this. Otherwise, thank you guys very much for listening. Keep your eyes and ears out for more stuff from me. And until the next time, enjoy your games and peace out, everybody. This is Andre, the Game Idea Guy, and I'd like to thank you once again for tuning in. If you would be interested in supporting my efforts in content creation, please head on over to Amazon and look up The Game Idea Guy Presents Gaming Word Search, and you will find both Volume 1 and Volume 2 up for sale. Thank you very much once again, and I hope to be able to create more content for you in the future. Peace out.